Hey, I missed you.
Cleophas Bell is a young father with an uncertain future. Until last month, he was a firefighter in Orange, New Jersey, a job he hoped to hold for life. Then the axe fell in a major round of budget cutting.
Never in a million years did I think that I would be laid off, because that is one of the lures to the job, is job security. We're not greedy public employees. We're willing to contribute more. We're willing to give up more. And, you know, it didn't work.
Orange Mayor Eldridge Hawkins Jr., himself a former police officer, acknowledges the union concessions, but says they must give up even more.
Police and fire make up 77% of our salaries and wages. So there's no way to close this gap without their cooperation. We just cannot keep pace with the skyrocketing costs of health care and pensions and the salaries that these unions are contractually entitled to. And I say that because they are entitled to them, which is why we need the givebacks.
There are no easy solutions in Orange, New Jersey, and unfortunately this is a scene that's playing out across the United States. Painful cuts need to be made and no one can agree on where or how. Some say only drastic change is going to solve this budget crisis. One idea for distressed states that's gaining support: bankruptcy.
To allow for federal bankruptcy.
The subject of recent congressional hearings.
To me, when I think about a bankruptcy regime for states, I don't think about it as it's radical. I think about it as just a process, and a process to allow states to work out their issues. And I think that can be done. Now,
John Hennis says the recent experience of GM is a good example of how bankruptcy proceedings can force unions and management to strike a deal. States are currently not allowed to file for bankruptcy, and it is extremely tough for cities and towns to do so. Officials like Mayor Hawkins call it a risky option.
And when you do things like declare bankruptcy, it can destroy your bond rating, which means you're going to be paying for this money at a much higher premium and a much higher interest rate.
State deficits are shrinking slightly as the overall U.S. economy strengthens. Even so, current estimates show 44 states and the District of Columbia with budget shortfalls totaling some $125 billion. And cleanup costs after this year's brutal winter storms are putting an added strain on the bottom line. Meanwhile, nervous municipal bond investors have exited the market, driving up borrowing costs. Analysts warn officials are running out of options and time.
whether there's a bankruptcy law or no bankruptcy law, there's pain coming. There's compromise that will have to come. The question is, how do you do it in a rational way without spooking the municipal bond market? How do you protect parties by having a process in place? It's not just for the states to have a noose hanging over the unions' heads, but to have the unions being able to say to the states, you need to treat us fairly.
For now, unions and their laid-off employees feel betrayed by their local governments and fearful of new pain to come. Maggie Lake, CNN, New Jersey.
What's wrong?